So I'll kind of go ahead and do just like a very brief intro for the purposes of the video as well. All right. So I want to welcome everybody today to our training for volunteers, whether you're new or an experienced volunteer here at Hobbs State Park Conservation Area. My name is Chris Pistol, and I'm a park interpreter here. And we're going to go through some handouts, and we'll make these available to everybody. If you are at home watching this video, we'll make sure that you get these handouts as well. So what we're planning on doing today, just a brief overview of the agenda. We're going to begin by learning about this place, our park. It's important to know our park and know our resources. We're going to talk about the best way to communicate about this place, this park, to our audience, our visitors or guests, or the school groups that come here for a learning experience. Then we will take a short break, and then we'll go over some of the details, some of the specific programs that we've got scheduled this next month, and those holes that need to be filled in getting some facilitators. So I know some of you have experience in the classroom, and what I like to begin by sharing with everybody, because we all come from different backgrounds, some not in formal education at all, but we all have different experiences to bring to this role that you'll be filling as a facilitator. I use that word purposefully rather than using the word teacher. And why do I do that? Not that I don't hold teachers in high esteem, but because when you hear the word teacher, most people get it that it's a one-way communication process. It's a teacher sharing information, putting information out there. And we really want interpretation and this communication process we're doing here in an outdoor learning environment to be more than just a teacher giving information. We want it to be more two-way. We want them to be able to share information, share their thoughts and ideas back with us. And much of the time, we're not just giving out information, but we are there to facilitate an activity, an exploration process, if you will, so that they can learn firsthand. So let me just talk a little bit about our philosophy. Our philosophy with our education programs, especially with groups such as schools. Number one, we want to try and be outside as much as possible. There are some programs that for the activities, the logistics, it's best done in the classroom. But sometimes we can start off and do part of it in the classroom and then move outdoors so that at least part of it is out there. We also want to do hands-on activities as much as possible. I have been amazed, Carrie, talking about your background and with special ed, I've had a number of experiences with school groups that have been, not just here, but in other jobs I've had, and they'll come out and a teacher will say, okay, this is a really challenging group. And we've all been there. We all know what that can be like. Or they might say, okay, these two over here, they're really going to be a challenge. And, they try and give you the heads up. And I always am like, okay, all right, well, that's fine. Thank you. Thanks, And like I said, on more than one occasion, after the program, I have had that teacher come up and say, I cannot believe how good those students were. They were just like eating it all up, and they weren't a behavior problem, and they weren't acting out, or and they listened, and they paid attention. And I attribute that partly to the enthusiasm, but primarily to the hands-on engagement. Where I think a lot of students struggle in the classroom is because it is that one way, expectation, and the way many of us were taught, quite honestly, was you sit, you listen, you take notes, and it's not very engaging. to be quite frank. So having activities that really engage their hands and their minds, I think, goes a long, long ways to helping everybody learn better and achieve more. So what else about our philosophy? Questions. It's really good to ask the students questions. Again, it's not just that one-way conduit of information, but getting their feedback from the questions that you ask. Questioning is a very important strategy to use in your presentations. So I think those are the key points that I wanted to emphasize. It is a little overwhelming at first if you don't have a background in science. I totally understand, I get it. But there are some important things I want to share in the handouts that we'll go through about that. So, the first thing, and your first handout, is this one that says knowing your park. And I think this is really key. So some of you have been out here quite a bit and are very familiar with the park, the resources, and maybe have your own favorite places that you like to be in the park for various reasons. Maybe it is simply you want to get a good workout, out on the trail, hiking, mountain biking. Lori, I know you and Daryl do that. I've seen you out there before. So it could be for that. It could be a place that is very peaceful and quiet, a place for contemplation, for inspiration, and that kind of thing. And there's so much that the outdoors has to offer people from all different backgrounds and experiences. So it just depends on the person, what they're seeking, what they're looking for, and we try and help them find that. So it's really good to start with a mission. What is the mission of this park? We do have a mission. So I'm not going to read everything on all these sheets. We don't have the time. You can read, so I'm not going to bore you with reading through all of this. These handouts are yours, of course, to take home and keep and refer to. But our mission is to provide enriching educational and recreational experiences in harmony with resource stewardship. So at all times, we have to set the example. We have to set a high bar of taking care of this place. We get hundreds of thousands of visitors to the park, and with that many people, very quickly the resources could become depleted or impacted. So we're setting that example always with the groups that we're leading, that we're facilitating. We have also a park interpretation mission to reveal the meaning of the relationships between the public and the park's natural and historic resources. So notice it says reveal the meaning. Now, that could be taken kind of the wrong way a little bit, like, I'm going to reveal to you that I know all, and, it's not meant that way. But hopefully by giving a small amount of information in an enthusiastic way, getting them excited, getting them wanting more. So there's no way we would even want to try and tell them everything there is to know about birds. Impossible. And in 45 minutes, as a lot of our programs for schools are that length of time. So it's picking activities that we can do in that time frame that are going to get them excited, just whet their appetite or light a spark so that they will want to then learn more. We do have themes, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but these all tie back, of course, to the resources we have here at Hobbs, from the Ozark Forest to water, the historic Van Winkle area, the karst landscape or topography around here. The importance of recreation. That's one of the reasons why we have state parks, so that people can come here and recreate. Our story of how this became a state park, and Trish has put together a new program, and I haven't got to see it yet, but why is there a state park here? That's the name of her program. And that's really important to know the Hobbs story. And then about diversity. And diversity in the natural environment, diversity among our visitors, our guests that are here as well. That's really important too. We have, as you see here, this was several years ago, by the way, 114,000. That was also pre-COVID. So I know some parks during COVID, they saw a huge boom in visitation. And for here at Hobbs, a lot of that was camping related, where people could take their tent or their RV and they could still get away and go somewhere and camp. So we have very limited camping here at this park. We have some primitive camping. But the word is that will be changing probably in the next 5 to 10 years. We will probably be adding an RV campground here on a piece of the park. What are your park's featured resources? Okay, so this activity, this worksheet, this was something that was given to us when I went to a training after I became a full-time interpreter for Arkansas State Parks. They sent this out and they asked everybody who was attending to fill this out for their park. So this next part, what are your park's featured resources? This is part of my response. This was what I put in there. From my viewpoint, it could vary. It could be different from another person's viewpoint as to what the featured resources are. So most of you know what we have to offer around here. Hiking, trails, that's one of our biggest resources and biggest uses of the park. But I won't go through all of that. List your park's major activities. Okay, once again, the trails, the hiking, the biking, the education, that's right there too. Nature programs, other experiences where we take people out kayaking or snorkeling on the lake. So that's recreation and also helps meet our mission and those goals. So the bottom two are questions that I've left blank. I've filled it out before, but I want you to be able, not now, but at some point, if you can go through and find 3 things about this park that you would want to tell a visitor. Some of you have helped out doing tabletops out front here, or booths in other capacities, helping out with Hobbs and our education outreach. So you might think about that, what you have wanted to share with people before. Only 3 things. If you could only tell 3 things to visitors about this park, what would they be? And if you can tell a visitor only 3 things they must see and do in your park, what are they? So I think that's really good to think about. And, when you are doing education programs here, whether it's with a school group or some other group, remember you are an ambassador. You are a representative of the park. So we would obviously want you to exhibit the kind of behavior that we would be proud of. That your grandmother would be proud of. We would never want to do anything, say anything that would put the park in jeopardy or the reputation. So we just need to think about that as, yes, you are a representative of the park when you are out there as a volunteer. So I think that's everything with that first sheet. So yes.
Can I ask a very quick question?
Mm-hmm.
On your themes for school groups, are you really focused on 1 through 4?
So with the outlines, when you get to see some of the outlines that are written, what we have done is we have tied those to the state science standards,
Right.
which I know now a lot of places are using the NGSS, the national science standards. And then we also try and tie them back to our Hobbs themes. We feel like it's important. For example, we don't just do a program on Okay, if it was rocks and fossils or geology, we don't do a program here just on volcanoes. Do we have volcanoes here? No. We don't even have, I just lost the metamorphic. Igneous, thank you. We don't even have igneous rocks here. Okay, so that obviously would not be appropriate for us to do here. Yes, if you're in Hawaii, absolutely, but not here. So the programs we've developed, we try and make sure that it's a mesh of the two, what the state science standards are. And we've actually turned some things down. They're like, hey, can you do forces and motion? Really, that doesn't tie in directly with our resources at Hobbs.
Okay.
So we're doing things that help promote ourselves as well.
We're always trying to tie them back to the resource.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. That's a good, quick, simple, easy way of summing it up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trish. So, what is interpretation? You hear this word, I introduced myself, said I'm a park interpreter. That means different things to different people. Some people will go, oh, what languages do you interpret? Not that kind of interpreter. I tell people I can barely speak one, and that's English. Sometimes I struggle with even that one. So there are different definitions of interpretation. So in my wallet, I carry from the National Association for Interpretation, NAI for short, is the professional organization for people in this field. And so this just went through the washing machine about a week ago. So yeah, I need to replace it. But here's NAI's new definition of interpretation. It says, interpretation is a purposeful approach to communication that facilitates meaningful, relevant, and inclusive experiences that deepen understanding, broaden perspectives, and inspire engagement with the world around us. That's very good. It is a bit lengthy, I must say. I don't know about you, but I don't know that I could just spout that off in the drop of a hat. But I do love this definition of interpretation that I found. Interpretation is the art of translating the language of nature and the voices of history into stories and experiences that everyone can understand and enjoy. So to me, that is a great definition. And you are welcome to use whichever one you prefer, but this is the one that kind of sticks the most with me. Below that, we have a quote from Rachel Carson. I'm sure most of you probably know who Rachel Carson was. It's oftentimes credited with being the inspiration for the start of the environmental movement back in the 60s and the early 70s. So she says, it is more important to feel than to know. Plant the seeds that later produce knowledge, arouse the emotions, and the wish for knowledge will come later. Once found, it will have lasting meaning. So notice that it's not tell them everything you know about birds in 45 minutes. But it's picking and choosing key bits of information and making it relevant. We use that word a lot in interpretation. You know, is it relevant? Does it relate to these kids and their lives today? I find myself, I love to use pop references sometimes in programs, and that can go really well or it can go south. Because one time I was talking to a group and I said something about, like on Gilligan's Island. And they looked at me and they go, what?
Who's island?
What? They'd never heard of Gilligan's Island. It's like, yeah, I'm dating myself. So yeah, be careful when you use those references. But yeah, always good to try and relate. The latest one that I've been using as a pop reference, which they get a kick out of, is when I'm talking about coming to the park and being outdoors, and maybe they have some fears about what might be in the outdoors and concerns, and definitely one of those things are ticks. And so I tell them, okay, are you guys ready for my TikTok? And they all go, what? What? And then you see them sit up in their seats and look around, and they're expecting me to do some sort of dance thing, and no, not that TikTok, I say. We're going to talk about ticks and how we can live
seconds.
the best with them. Yes, in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
On the back side of that sheet, so the first one there didn't have anything on the back of it, the knowing your park, which, yes, I was saying you've got 2 of those in here. I guess one you can write on if you want to keep them both. One you can write on and the other you can keep nice and clean. But the origin of interpretation, and I just want to mention, I do have some books over here, so I'm going to step away from the camera just for a second. So I have some books, and we have some of these in our library. We do have a library here at the park. You're welcome to check some of these books out if you would like to do that. That's why we have the library. But Freeman Tilden, so he is the person credited with coming up with a lot of the concepts of interpretation. And so these 6 points are the principles that Freeman Tilden came up with. He wrote that in the 50s, I believe it was, and so it sounds like so long ago. But so the language he uses is a little dated, maybe not the way we would talk today as much. It's rather formal, I guess you might say. But he is credited with being the father of interpretation, Freeman Tilden. Got a lot of experience working in the National Park Service and working with them. Another one, and I've kind of penciled in his name here on your worksheet, Enos Mills. And so if you've not heard of him before, he was one of the very first nature guides. And so Adventures of a Nature Guide is this book. And he did most of his work in the Rocky Mountain, what became Rocky Mountain National Park. He fought to get Rocky Mountain National Park created and protect that beautiful, wonderful landscape there. So the book is quite interesting, and he was one of the very first that said, let's have women be nature guides too. And so we're talking the late 1800s. That was pretty forward thinking at that time period. So he welcomed women to come and be nature guides as well. So in the interest of time, I'm going to move on. But those principles, do take a look at that worksheet. And those principles have been updated. I have another book over here, Principles of Interpretation for the 21st Century. So what they did was they took those, they kind of expanded on them, and put them in some different language that's a little bit easier to understand. Referring back to my little handy-dandy guide here, it also lists Tilden's principles. It lists several other things, but in interpretation, we often refer to an acronym, I believe that's the correct term, of poetry. So what we are doing is using poetry in creating our programs, our outlines, and the presentations that we give. So anybody know what the P stands for? And Trish can't answer because she knows this. What do you think the P? Our program should be purposeful. My mind-brain telepathy. Yeah, you got that. Purposeful. Aligns with the mission and accomplishes measurable objectives. And we do that with these, especially with the school programs. What about the O? What do you think O might be? How our program should be?
Original?
That's a good one.
Obtainable.
Obtainable, yeah, I like that.
But it's not what you're looking for.
organized.
Oh,
Yeah. So it might look easy. That's great. We hope that, when we get up here and, talking, that it looks like it's just super, super easy. And you may not really be thinking of, oh, that's really organized, because we make it seem so smooth and the flow and everything. But yeah, it takes prep. It takes prep. You have to be organized. And so you've got an outline. Trish is holding it up, showing, in there is an outline that we use for developing a lot of our programs. You may have seen that in your handouts. So an introduction, a body, a conclusion. Seems pretty straightforward, pretty basic, nothing earth-shattering about that. But I will just say that, like, in an introduction, and what I would do if you are helping with our programs, taking on one of these stations to teach or to facilitate, that have a written introduction. Not that you read, but write out exactly what you want to say to kick things off, to get things started. That will help you so much. Rather than kind of, okay, how do I begin? What do I want to say? And rather than, kind of hemming and hawing or whatever, that it's very direct, very to the point of, this is the beginning of what I have to share with you. And if you have any nerves or anxiety about being up there and doing that, that helps. If you can just get those first few lines out in your introduction, then the rest seems to kind of flow. Yes?
So Chris, what are some elements that they want to include in their introduction that will help? So it's not like it's not an introductory paragraph, these are the things I'm going to hit while I'm
Yeah. Well, some of the things we typically want to include, of course, is yourself. Tell them who you are. So that may be a little bit more relatable then, making yourself relatable. If you want to tell them anything about your background, okay, that goes towards your credibility. Now for, second graders, they probably don't care about your credibility. But with older students, that might be of interest to them, that this person actually knows what they're talking about, what they're doing. And if not, if you don't share that, that's okay too. Don't feel like you have to. You don't want to, of course, say, I know nothing about this, but I'm here anyways. Don't do that. Including what we call Maslow's. So those of you in education, I'm sure have heard before of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And again, that makes it seem welcoming, inviting, understanding that, yes, there are certain needs we all have. Maybe it's a bathroom, a physical need. That's important.
Lunch, when is lunch?
Yes, yeah. So taking care of those physical needs, but also setting the expectations, and that is very important. Those of you who have taught before, you've got to clearly outline your expectations and telling them, okay, this is what we're going to be doing. This is about how long we're going to be doing it, and then you'll have lunch, because you'll get that question a lot. When is lunch? So those are the main things. Your theme. So we try and have a theme, and I'm not one of those people that's a real stickler that the theme must be this complete sentence, and it has to, be like this and this and this. It should be a complete thought. Should be a complete thought that gets to the heart of it, that kind of could sum it up. Kind of an elevator speech, if you will. Everybody knows that term, right? If you're in an elevator with somebody, what do you do? So, in just a few sentences, you can kind of sum up what it is that you do, or sum up what the program is going to be about. And the big picture. How does this relate to them and their world? This park, this place, why it matters. Or we often like to use two little words. So what? It answers the question, so what? How many of you have ever gotten that before? If you've ever been trying to teach or work with a group. So what? Why should I care about that? So that's what the theme also helps to answer, is that question, so what? Back to poetry, E.
Enthusiastic.
Oh, good, good. I like both of those.
Exciting.
I used this word earlier.
Engaging.
Engaging. Yep. It should be engaging. Uses multiple learning styles and techniques to connect to the audience. We know that people don't all learn the same way. And so I am trying, my goal is to try and include more of the arts in things that I do, whether that be visual arts, performing arts. I do a rap. I do actually a couple of mean raps. There's the bat rap, there's the scat rap, there's the reptile rap. But all of those things, we know that they touch people in different ways and stimulate them creatively to think in different ways. And that's what we're trying to do. It could be literal poetry. Okay, so we're using poetry, the acronym, to talk about how a program should be set up, but it could be actual poetry. Dance, movement, it could be that as well. So it should be engaging, and there are many different techniques that you can use to make it engaging. The T, we talked earlier about this. In your introduction, it should include a theme. Yeah, there's that word again. So thematic. Provokes thought or action by delivering a message. R. I've used this word already a number of times.
Recreation.
What?
Oh, I just said recreational, but I don't think that's.
Not that R.
Relevant.
Relevant. Yep, that's the word. Makes emotional and intellectual connections with the audience. And the why?
Because
Oh,
we love you.
You is the why. So when they actually came up with this, there's a story about how they had POETR. They had those. They were trying to put them together into an acronym, and they didn't quite have it, and then they figured out the why to get poetry. So creates flexibility to design appropriate experiences for specific audiences. So I wish I had these to hand out to all of you. But if you join the National Association for Interpretation, this probably could be yours for a very small donation. All right, so this next page, the Interpreter's Creed, this is for you, for your reading pleasure. I think that nicely sums up what our goal is as an interpreter. On the back side of it shows the two extremes in natural history interpretation. So if you're a visual learner and this graph, this may really help bring it home, help you understand it better. It has to be a balance between that factual knowledge and using those various styles and techniques for delivering the message or those communication skills. Too heavy on one side or the other, and you lose a lot. We sometimes like to use the term word vomit. Some people are really verbose. They have lots of words, and they will spew lots of words. Word vomit.
It may be facts.
What?
It may be facts.
It may be. And of course should all be accurate. Definitely. But you're going to lose a lot of your audience. You're going to lose a lot of your group if you're just spewing facts. On the other hand, if it's too ooh and ah, edutainment, as if you've ever heard that term, it loses the main message. It just becomes about the gag, the stunt, the whatever, and doesn't really have any meaning to it. So it's finding a balance. The next one, yes, we've seen that, knowing your part. And then on the back side of that, there is an outline. Does everybody have that one? Okay, very good. Hopefully it was, maybe you didn't have that one in there.
I got it. It's in there, it's on the back of.
Maybe they're out of order.
This one?
But yes, you see there that this is exactly the outline that when we're developing a new program, whether it's for
I didn't get one.
a school group or a public program on the weekend, yeah, we run through this and make sure that we get this all filled out. And then what I have to do is, so this is very brief, this is a summary. So then I create another one that has the details.
This is a summary. If you've had to do, understanding by design and backward design, and then Charlotte
Yep.
Danielson, and you have to get that in there. This is great. I like this.
Good.
She didn't put so what at the end though, did she?
Yeah, she did. That's why you got like
It's-
this form. This
so
long.
what?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
You're creating something.
The next sheet in here, and I know some of us do not suffer from this, but it's okay if it makes you nervous. So I never in a million years would have expected for me to be up here doing what I do now. If I went back to my 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade self, I was so insecure and so nervous ever having to get up in front of a group or speak. I would literally make myself sick. I would be like hurling. I'd be so nervous. So I never in a million years would have dreamed that I would end up doing this for a career. But we all have fear. And I was actually in choir. Yes, I was that nerd. I loved birds and I was in choir. I had a teacher, so I had a solo and I was so nervous. And the teacher said, "It's okay to be nervous. That means you care. That means you want to do well. So use the nerves, use that to your advantage. That helps to push yourself to do well." So I'll always remember Mrs. Steele's advice of it's okay to be nervous. But these are some tips on overcoming fear for anybody that maybe has, that is the number one fear of all Americans. They've done studies, and the number one fear is public speaking. Yeah. Way more than anything else, even snakes. On the other side, your voice. Your voice is your tool. Not that you always have to be talking. I think that's a really important thing to understand as well. It's okay for there to be periods of quiet, of reflection, of contemplation. Now, granted, if you have a group of kindergartners, it's going to be short. About 5 seconds of contemplation, and that's enough. Leaving a pause after you ask a question, that's a really important technique as well. Some kids will just right away, they'll want to spout off, the first thing that comes to mind, or if they know the answer, they'll want to give you the answer. But it's really, really effective to give them 10 seconds. I know it seems like an eternity to wait 10 seconds after you've asked a question, but that gives everybody the opportunity to stop and think, and then call on those kids that you can see are maybe a little more hesitant, a little more shy, and in the background, not the ones that are right in your face doing this, which we see all the time.
Hey Chris, can I give just like a little thing that happened to me last spring?
Yes.
So the first program I did was maybe 6th graders, and I had learned to, when you stop using your voice, it doesn't mean the teaching has to stop. You hand it to a student.
Yeah.
And they do like the next factoid, or, you have those things. Well, then the next thing I came up on was you asked me to do something for kindergarten. And I went, oh darn. And because it changes the whole pace, and they love having the voice. Well, there were so many parents there that I actually did still use that strategy where the family became the voice. And that's really being pushed right now in our schools, is that the voice and the teaching continue, but it changed person. And
Yes.
man, does it bring the focus in again. So anyway, I just hadn't hit it with young learners, but it worked really well.
Yeah. So your voice, that can be read a couple different ways.
Yeah,
Can't
yeah.
it? So the typical things about, be sure that you can be heard, you're speaking loud enough, don't talk in a monotone,
Inflection, yeah.
all of that, but also, who are you speaking for?
Mhm.
And so we have a lot of responsibility. There's a great weight on our shoulders in some ways that we represent various viewpoints, but also finding out what their viewpoint is and letting them share that as well. And the family and the community.
Yeah, it was helpful.
It's a good point. The next one here is questions, types of questions. I have been in some trainings before where I know they have drilled into us, there should be no yes/no questions
Open-ended.
in a presentation.
Is this a timber rattlesnake in front of us?
Yes.
I think that's an important.
Give it room.
Lot of room.
There are definitely times and places for yes/no questions or very directive.
Is this venomous? Yes, leave it alone.
Yeah.
Don't touch that.
Don't touch it.
But having open-ended questions, that will be more productive and more beneficial in the long run. Getting their take, their views on different things. Questioning can be a double-edged sword. So be careful what you do. If you have too many questions, if you leave it too open-ended, it can easily, they can monopolize, and pretty soon, oh my gosh, you're 45 minutes and now you're down to 5. You only have 5 minutes left and you're still the meat of your program that you need to give. So have some techniques, some ways, what I do sometimes, because they often become stories instead of a question. If you get to that point where you are saying, does anybody have any questions? Sometimes you'll get the stories, and it is okay. It is okay. In fact, it's necessary to at some point say, I appreciate you wanting to share that. So, still being positive. You don't want to, be rude or mean or anything. But I appreciate you wanting to share that. That sounds like a story. I think that it would be best if you shared that story with maybe your classmates or your teacher, maybe on the way back to school, when you get to school. But for today, since I have you for such a short amount of time, let's make sure that it is a question. So it's okay to do that. If you don't, it can be a train wreck. It can get out of control. So using questions, rhetorical questions can also be part of that, one of your techniques. Then there's some information here on guided tours. So some of our programs that we have are guided tours. So you're leading them on the Ozark Plateau Trail, typically the trail that's right out here. And so this has got some very good techniques. I'm not going to go through all of these. Again, you can read. If you do end up leading one of the hikes on the trail, for example, we have one, plant scavenger hunt, plant structures and functions. We have one that's set up as a hike on the OPT. So this has got some good techniques, some things very, very simple, like you're leading your group, don't let the group lead you. And so you're leading your group, you tell the person right behind you, the student behind you, okay, I need you to stay here, you're going to be the front of the line, and everybody else is going to stop here and stay behind you. And then what do? You go back to the middle. So don't try and talk to your group from the front. And then you're having to yell or try and see the people in the back. Same thing if there's something that you want to show them along the trail, lead the group past it, halfway past it, so that more people will be able to adequately see what you're trying to show there. And even if you're not showing them something, just if you're speaking, go back to the middle. That makes people feel more included. What about those people in the back? Haven't we all been in one of those tours or a situation where you ended up in the back and you can't hear half of what's being said, you can't see, and yeah, it's really disappointing. But there are some techniques that you can employ to help prevent that and make it a better experience for everybody. So guided tours and interpretive walks. That's what this sheet has got on it. The next thing I did include then an outline. This is one that I wrote. This has been approved, so to get my Certified Interpretive Guide certification, this was the outline that I used, a program I put together about the passenger pigeon. And it relates here to this park. I mean, at first you might think, what does that have to do with Hobbs? Well, it's part of our story, part of our history, and we have the Pigeon Roost Trail. And it was named because of the passenger pigeons that had been seen here long ago. So not a school program, but still it is an example of an outline, and then on the back side is kind of the more detailed, with more detailed information. But, it's primarily for you. So, you can write it, put on there what's going to help you the most to be able to deliver that program the most effectively. You can use your secret handwriting or whatever you want in that outline that's for you. And then what kinds of criteria are we looking for? What would we judge a good program to be? So this last sheet, well, we do like to gather information, although I will say that this is kind of something we're not able to use right now. This first on this side, the program evaluation. I think it's still important and it's still valid, but we've been waiting for almost since I got here to get approval at the state level to use these for evaluating our programs. I don't understand why. Above my pay grade, I guess, but yeah, I think it's really important to get feedback from your audience, and that's what this was designed to do. The other side of it that looks like this, if my supervisor came in to evaluate me on my interpretive program, this is the sheet he uses. This is what we are looking for. So that we are achieving all of these types of things.
Not that we expect people to.
Be
I was gonna say.
perfect.
This is to let you know that this is a skill that can be honed and developed.
Everyone's leaving the room.
Well, it's almost like, this is what they do to us when we're paid, so.
Yeah, that's right. And you are volunteering. You are volunteering. But yeah, if you want to know, these are the ideals. This would be, what we're looking for as a great example. But I think it's valuable to know, well, what am I supposed to be doing? And if you were an employee and you were being evaluated, yeah, what would that look like? And so I included that in there as well. So I think we have time maybe for just a few questions, and then we're going to take that short break, and then so you can get more cookies, more tea, water, whatever, and then we're going to talk about the specifics. I guess before we do that, just let me get this sheet out again that shows the upcoming schedule.
Do you
So-
have outlines for all of these?
We have outlines for every program.
Do you have them today? For
We have a bunch
ones
of
we
them
might
out.
be interested in?
Some of them are out over here, and what I typically like to do is email them. So if I guess here's the bottom line. Before you go today, we would love to have you say, I am interested in this program here on animal structure and function. And I will make a note of that, I'll put you in here, and immediately I will send you the outline. Rather than like making copies of the outlines for everybody.
Right.
It's like, Lisa's like, I don't want to do birds. I don't even like birds. No, that's Carrie.
No, I love birds. I'm just scared of them. I just don't want to touch them.
She was sharing a personal
Yeah,
story
personal
with me earlier, and so,
Get
yeah.
over it.
Just can't believe anybody would be afraid of birds.
Oh, yeah.
I'm also afraid of birds.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't realize
I'm
that.
not afraid of birds, but I don't like the sound their wings make when they fly.
Well, the personal thing was is they attack me. They have always attacked me, so I'm over it. I'm done with them. I'll
Maybe they're just drawn to you.
from afar. That's all I'm gonna say. I'll teach, but
I do have a son that won't go near a swan because of a 3-year-old experience.
see.
We don't have any live
I know.
exhibit birds.
Okay.
They'll all be in the treetops and mostly identified via sound or flicker.
You know what? That's perfect because I'm a watcher. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but once they hold I don't want to hold them.
Too fun.
Tiny dinosaurs.
So that's what we hope that, and so what we have done is we have laid some of the materials out, especially for programs that are coming up soon. We've got those in the room next door. I think, I think those outlines are over there as well. Trish helped get some of that stuff set up. So if you see a particular program here that interests you, then let us know. We can point you in the right direction in the room next door. It's kind of like your time to explore, and Trish and I will be there to help you, and we'll float around and explain what some of those items are. But you can look at those outlines. But so our immediate need, I'll just cut to the chase. Our immediate need is we need somebody to do animal structure and function on October 4th, and I know that's just a week away. Bird beaks fill the bill is another one. Now, I mentioned earlier, I am totally flexible, so I would love if somebody would want to do the plant structure and function with the cool little scavenger hunt on the OPT, and I would take bird beaks and fill the bill, and put in some other things there with them. So that's the first program where we have a great need. You can see then the next one would be on the 6th. Calories in food is a little tricky. I'm not as flexible on that one. I don't know that anybody's going to want to come in and jump in and do calories in food and the calorimeter. Oh, are you wanting to?
Well, what day is it? Okay.
That's your
I've
backup.
taught nutrition.
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
taught, in life, I've taught healthy, anyway.
That's true. I forgot about that. So what we
She
do...
knows what a calorimeter is.
Yeah.
And nutrition.
We have our little homemade calorimeters. We had a group of homeschoolers here last Friday, and I was thinking they were 6th grade and up, and I thought, oh man, they are not gonna enjoy this at all. They ate it up. They thought it was great, and they were like, "Can we do more?" They wanted to burn more foods to see what the calories were.
That's what's the big thing,
Yeah.
because the flame is really bright.
So we can talk. We can talk about some flexibility there with that one. And then I tie it back though to the park, the resources, the forest, and what groceries are out there in the forest for all the critters. So that would cover next week. Steve C. on here is Steve Churchill, so he's our other full-time interpreter. Steve K. is a volunteer, Steve Kick, some of you know him, and he is our fire building guru. So when we have a number of these outdoor survival skills program, and they're tied to either the book Touching Spirit Bear, which is like a 6th grade and up, or Hatchet, which is a 4th, 5th grade book. And that's how that all came about, because we had a teacher that said, we're reading Hatchet, and we would love to come out there on a field trip. Is there anything you could do that ties into outdoor survival? Well, yes we can. And those, we only have 3 stations. A lot of those are so limited in their time. These schools can't get here till 10, so we have to kind of pare things down. And instead of doing 4 stations, just 3. Some of the groups there'll be a bye. So like if we have 3 classes, but we're doing all 4 stations because we have time, There'll be a rotating buy round or buy station. So you'll have a break somewhere in there. Might be at the very beginning, might be in the middle, might be at the very end, that you won't have one of the groups. So that does happen sometimes.
And like Chris said, if you guys wanted to come shadow any of these, yeah, to see what you're maybe getting into.
Providing we get somebody to cover the first ones.
Yes, after we get somebody to cover the first couple.
Yeah. We have on the next sheet there, moving later into October, the next one where we have, I think, an opening is the 19th. A second grade. We really do emphasize 4th and 5th grade a lot. A lot of our programs, we have more programs designed for 4th and 5th grade, but we have something for every grade level, at least one formal program. Yes, Avery?
She was wondering, like, if anybody wants to sign up today to shadow or to help with these, can they sign up with you today?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we take our break, just come up and visit with me or Trish. And, well, I guess we ought to have just one sheet,
Yeah,
so we don't have duplication.
Your handwriting is much nicer than mine.
Really? Okay.
Mine?
I have a question.
And so there are a couple there. This is going to vary a little bit. So this teacher reached out, and I always tell teachers, if there's something you want that we're not offering, but it ties back into your curriculum, let us know. We will try and develop something that, again, meets the state science standards, that meets our Hobbs themes, and put that together. We may not be able to. We may have to say, it doesn't really fit, like forces in motion. But what was I going to add? Yes?
Yeah, do you offer these programs through the entire school year? Or is there a time when there's not?
We let them schedule pretty much, September through May.
Okay.
But the winter, because we do a lot outdoors, that's a slow time. So we don't get very many in the winter. But April and May, very busy. Lots of.
And that's when the kinders come out, because they've now gotten used to what
Yeah,
it is
That's
to
the
be a
whole thing.
teen.
They have to, they have to train them for the first
I will say, for those of you that are apprehensive about kindergarten because maybe you haven't taught that level or you
So
don't
many
know how,
parents.
I will honestly say, if you've got relatively decent kind of classroom management skills, they can be some of the most fun groups because they're naturally trying to make that connection. And so they will notice things on hikes that older kids will never know. You may not even notice. They have such a sense of wonder about the simplest things. And so the teaching moments are so rich with that age group in this type of educational setting. So for those of you like, I don't know, I'm just telling you, you will get so much joy out of that, and they'll run up and they'll hug you and they'll send you the sweetest little cards. I promise you, do not be afraid of the kindergartners.
And you can always team up with a friend. Kara and I often work together.
Yeah.
That is a good point. I'm glad you reminded me to say something about that. Yes. If you don't want to take something on by yourself, we will try and find a person to co-teach with or co-lead, co-facilitate. Yes.
In the 6th grade spring program, twice I had, another person, and twice we had that incredibly engaged 6th grade, definitely on the spectrum student group, and it was so awesome to see what happened when we could stretch, have that second person, just let them be engaged to the nth degree. And I've never seen field guides used by 6th graders to that extent. But see, that was a beautiful opportunity that having two made possible.
Yes. Yeah. It's nice when you can have
It
another
was
person.
really a neat thing.
So if you've got somebody else that you want to sign up to come and help with you, a spouse or loved one or somebody else, just a friend, that is good. So I think if we want to stop the video, we can do that. Take a short, 3-4 minute break, and I'll be up here